Well, a routine traffic stop in California for expired tags led to one man's conviction and a sentence of 15 years to life in prison. He was arrested because of loaded guns in his car, but information he had on his cell phone that police found tied him to gang activity, so that all loaded in on the case. This case is just one the Supreme Court will hear as it wades into the technology versus privacy debate over whether police making an arrest can search cell phones without a warrant. And another case, a man in Boston was picked up on suspicion of selling crack cocaine. While in police custody, kept on receiving calls on his cell phone. Police searched his phone and went to his address where they found more incriminating evidence. So how will the Supreme Court rule when it comes to what is private and what is not? With more on this, we have criminal defense attorneys Jonna Spilbor and Brian Silbert joining us. Great to have you both. I think we need a little context for this. I haven't been arrested. Knock on wood, the day is young. You never know what's going to happen. But Jonna, if someone is arrested, if I was arrested, do police automatically have access to my purse and my wallet, my diary if I was carrying around a notebook in my bag? Do they have access to everything that I'm carrying on me?
The short answer is nope, but sometimes. Here's what happens. When somebody gets arrested for anything, the police are required to get a warrant to search beyond your person or any place where they might not find something that's going to put them in danger. In other words, you get pulled over for speeding, Jenna, right? The police officer cannot say license, registration, and cell phone, but what he can do is look inside the passenger compartment of your car, and if he sees a weapon in plain view or he has something that could be contraband, he can seize it without a warrant. That's a very limited circumstance.
So that's interesting. That's what happened in one of these cases, Brian. A man gets pulled over, expired tags. They see, guns in his car in California, not allowed to have those loaded weapons. And then they search his cell phone and it ties him to gang activity. So now he's involved in a much more serious case. Is that legal?
Well, look, prosecutors, I think, are going to have an uphill battle with this issue because a cellular phone is really a mixed-use item. You know, on the one hand, people keep private information in their phones. You might have very personal photographs of yourself. You might have communications with you and your lawyer, with your doctor, etc. But on the other hand, you know, these devices communicate with the internet, with third parties that locate where you are, who you're with, what you're doing. But at the end of the day, I think the Supreme Court is going to answer one very important question, and that's whether or not people have a reasonable expectation of privacy in their cell phones. And I think they do.
You agree, Jonna?
Oh, absolutely. I can think of very few circumstances where a police officer would find that there's information on a cell phone that's so important that they can't apply for a search warrant with a judge. Getting a search warrant does not require an act of God. It requires a phone call to a judge, an affidavit, and if there's probable cause, look, you can detain that person for a couple of hours and get one. Let's keep the Fourth Amendment intact before we have police officers knocking on our door during dinner for no reason whatsoever.
And that is the question, Brian. A lot of the law enforcement say, listen, the speed of investigation, it's moving so fast. In the case in Boston, for example, the phone's going off nonstop just after this guy did a major drug deal. You can see how police thought, maybe there's something on that phone that we need to know. Now, in that situation, legally, did police have to call a judge to say, I need to unlock the cell phone, or I just need to go through the call log, or can they just do it?
Listen, that is the lamest excuse that law enforcement comes up with all the time. Number one, if there's an exigency, someone's life is on the line, there's a missing kid, you know, immediately, the law says you can act under exigency. They don't have to waste time and lose a person's life over going through the paperwork. That said, this system is streamlined. You can get a warrant as quickly as sending an email. It's nothing more than justifying your actions and having an independent member of the judiciary make sure that you're not violating the law. And that can happen in normal cases. Law enforcement investigates crime 6 months, a year at a time. So not every case is exigent.
In that situation, Brian, you think that the cops should have said, hold on, I'm going to call a judge. I'm going to get approval for a warrant to search the cell phone just in case I'm going to get in trouble.
No. It's not about trouble. And, you know, this is a case-by-case limited situation that they have to decide what is right and what is wrong. And guess what? Later on, that will be dealt with in court. So exigency requires more information than what you're presenting. You know, is someone's life on the line? What is the item to be searched? What is the consequence to the investigation?
Well,
it's a very dynamic thing.
I was reading something recently that said in the next 10, 20 years, we'll each have 5 different electronic devices attached to our body on one given time.
Don't we already?
Right, the BlackBerry.
I think I've got 4 of those now.
Right, we all have it. So it's interesting to talk about this, John, at the same time that we're talking about the NSA and surveillance and whether or not warrants need to be handed out for simple surveillance in the same way that it might need to be handed out if just your town law enforcement wants to take a look at your cell phone. How do you navigate both sides of the debate? Because one's very immediate and local, and one is very federal and very national.
I think we have to give the Fourth Amendment the deference and respect that it's due. And again, Jenna, you're a law-abiding citizen. Can you imagine a scenario where if you got pulled over, the police would be allowed to, they can go in your purse and look for a weapon immediately, but that's it. If they go and they take your cell phone and they start looking through it for other evidence, what justification is there for that? Just because we live in an electronic age, that's not justification enough to satisfy the Fourth Amendment.
Sometimes my purse is so heavy it actually could be used as a weapon.
Mine weighs more than you. Yeah.
That's a different story completely. An interesting debate. John and Brian, great to have you both on it today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.